Story 1. I am a civil engineer who completed my degree specializing in structural engineering. In addition to that, I spent a year specializing in complex studies and design at a renowned school in my country after finishing my engineering degree. I'm not sure if this gives you an idea of my skills, but I ranked second and third respectively in both these schools out of a class of 120 people. As a result, you could say I'm highly specialized. At the end of my studies, I secured a contract for the job I wanted even before graduating. I wasn't in a rush, having interviewed for 5 jobs with only 7 CVs sent, and I received 4 job offers. The team I joined consisted of 6 engineers, including me, specializing in existing structures. Basically, if a bridge or a dam develops a crack, they call us to inspect it on site and run calculations to assess whether everything is still safe. Fast forward a year, and I had integrated well into the team, gaining competence and maturity. By the second year, I went from being the person asking questions to the one people turned to when they needed answers. Everything was going well. I received raises every year, bonuses, and compliments. Everything was good. Things started to take a turn after the 3rd year. By then, I had become the go-to person for complex projects and situations where others couldn't find solutions. Because of this, I requested a move from project manager to a more technical position, which we call technical referent. In this role, I would continue working on projects, but some of my time would be dedicated to ensuring the team's compliance with standards and addressing more in-depth technical issues. This position didn't exist in our firm, but was common in other companies. I proposed it because our team had grown to 12 people. Thanks to my involvement in more complex projects, we increased our sales by 30% in 3 years. With the team expanding and other people stepping into project management roles, it seemed like the right time for me to take on this new role. Even my supervisor and the manager above him acknowledged in my yearly review that many of the projects we had were due to my contributions. To become a technical referent, I told them I needed some additional training to further enhance my technical knowledge. I even researched and proposed the training programs myself, complete with pricing and contact information for the institutions. They agreed verbally and in writing, although they said it might take some time to implement. You can probably see where this is heading. By the 4th year, I had become even more essential to the team. I was teaching and testing new hires, and everyone came to me with their questions, including my supervisor. He even admitted that he didn't fully understand some of the technical reports and calculations I had prepared. I had become the person people turned to when they were stuck or had no other options. Seeing no progress on the training and the position I had requested, I asked to meet with someone from Human Resources to discuss my career plan. Unfortunately, the HR meeting was a complete disaster. They got my name wrong, had never heard of me, and didn't even have my file, so the discussion was brief and unproductive. To give you some context, the company is pretty large in our field, with about 500 employees and only 6 HR staff members. Ironically, the HR representative I spoke with was the one who had originally hired me. After that, I had my yearly review with my supervisor. I expressed my concerns about their willingness to help me advance, but they gave me a raise and a bonus, promising to do everything necessary to help me grow as I had requested. In my 5th year, 3 people left the team, 2 for personal reasons to reunite with family, and 1 because they realized they couldn't keep up with the technical demands of the projects we were handling. As for me, nothing changed. I was still one of the 2 pillars of the team, but there were no training opportunities, no advancement, nothing. I even had to fight to get a specialized computer for calculations. Running a complex finite element model on an outdated computer with only 8 GB of RAM was incredibly frustrating. I scheduled a meeting with my supervisor and explained that 2 years had passed without any action being taken. I asked them to please do something, anything. They arranged a meeting with my supervisor, his supervisor, and a manager from another division. Right at the start of the meeting, my supervisor's boss said, "I haven't read your file and don't know what you're asking for. Please explain again." Keep in mind, this person manages 50 people. I explained everything again, only to be criticized by 2 of the managers for an hour, while my supervisor stayed silent. They claimed I wasn't putting in enough effort, that answering everyone's questions was part of my job, and that I was asking for too much. Honestly, I mentally checked out after the first 10 minutes. At the end of the meeting, I told them that if nothing changed, I would start looking for opportunities elsewhere, and many people in the team might follow. Their response was contradictory. They told me to start looking if I wasn't happy, but also said they would try to meet my demands. 4 months later, nothing had changed, and I felt like I was being treated as though I had some sort of illness that would infect the rest of the team. I was repeatedly told that the grass isn't always greener on the other side, and that I might not find anything better, but I should still consider looking. It was all the typical things companies say to try and keep someone on board. I got along well with everyone on the team, and they were all frustrated with how I was being treated, except my supervisor, who seemed indifferent. At this point, I had trained most of them, and their skills were largely inherited from me. Fed up with the situation, I started looking for new opportunities, assuming nothing would change. I sent out 5 CVs, interviewed for 3 positions, received 2 offers, and accepted one. Before leaving, I told the company that while the grass may not always be greener elsewhere, you can't keep someone by making empty threats. I also warned them that others might follow if they didn't start recognizing talent. Now, I have a great job with fewer hours, a 10% raise, more benefits including a company car, and a national referent role. As for the fallout, 2 people resigned within 3 and 6 months after I left because they lost faith in the company. Of the 6 remaining team members, 3 told me they were planning to leave as well. The atmosphere at the office has reportedly become dull. There's no one left to answer technical questions, no engaging discussions, and it's essentially a skeleton crew just waiting for better opportunities. To give you an idea, these colleagues are skilled, and I tried to recruit 2 of them myself, but they declined due to family commitments. I still try to send them job offers whenever I can and recommend them to other companies. Once they leave, the most experienced person in the division besides the supervisor will have only 10 months of experience, with the average experience time being just 5 months. They've already lost significant contracts that I had secured. Some clients have even called me directly to ask what happened. They told me they don't trust my former supervisor because of previous issues. When I visited the office recently to say hello, I learned that sales have dropped back to the level they were 5 years ago before I joined the company, a 35% decrease in 9 months, with 3 resignations. Even my former supervisor admitted that they don't even attempt projects requiring difficult calculations anymore because they lack the necessary expertise. Now, the future of that division looks uncertain because they don't have the skills needed for complex projects and calculations. This all happened a while ago, but it feels good to get it off my chest. To all the new hires and people starting their first job, please recognize your worth as soon as you can. It will help you grow and know when you're being taken advantage of. Story 2. There's this one coworker I will never forget, but in a bad way. From ages 19 to 22, I worked at a Tex-Mex restaurant that shared a patio with the neighboring bar. I got along with the staff really well and ended up being the head server, handling the scheduling and assigning side duties to staff within a few months. A year into my time there, they hired a woman in her early 40s. She seemed really nice at first, but soon, a few red flags started to pop up. For instance, she refused to learn any Spanish to communicate with the kitchen staff, not even basic words related to food ordering. Mind you, I spoke almost no Spanish when I started, but I eventually learned to communicate with the entire staff in a broken mix of English and Spanish that worked for us. She thought it was ridiculous and insisted they just learn English, which was ironic considering she pronounced chorizo as chorizo. We all kind of just tolerated her and dismissed her as being annoying. She constantly complained about being broke, saying she didn't have enough money to feed her rescue dog or pay rent. But then, she'd wander over to the neighboring bar after work and drink for hours every single day. It was clear she was a functional alcoholic, and I'm not saying that to judge her, just to give perspective. However, realizing that she couldn't afford to feed her dog because she'd rather order 5 double top-shelf cocktails really made me lose respect for her and diminished any empathy I had for her situation. After a while, we noticed she was crying, literally crying to customers about her money problems. Most of them were regulars, and a few even asked me to stop letting her wait on them because of this. I spoke to the manager, who was a friend, and he had a talk with her, giving her a stern warning. Side note, I have always loved Halloween. I usually request the evening of Halloween and the morning after off months in advance. In this case, I asked for the time off 2 full months in advance, and it was approved. 2 days before Halloween, she asked me to switch shifts with her, meaning I would have to open the day after Halloween. I kindly told her I was sorry, but I couldn't because I already had plans and approved time off. She responded with, "Fine, I guess I'll just end it all," to which I replied, "That's not cool, dude." She then went into a long, spiraling rant about her life falling apart, how this was her one chance in a long time to be happy, and how I was ruining it, making her want to drink herself to death. Being the nice person I am, and obviously not wanting someone to harm themselves, I gave her a little pep talk about how bad things are temporary and all that. I thought the situation was dealt with, so I clocked out for the day and went next door for a drink to decompress. A couple of hours later, I got a text from one of the cooks saying she was losing her temper with them, screaming, and even criticizing them for not speaking English. They called the manager, who came in and promptly fired her. I was next door the whole time, gossiping with the bartender about how crazy this lady was. Suddenly, I felt someone bear hug me tightly from behind. Before I could even register what was happening, I was all elbows and shouts, and I apparently elbowed her pretty hard. She started whining and got all defensive, saying she didn't know why I was mad. Somehow, she thought I was going to side with her. Oops. I stood up, shaking with adrenaline and frustration, and told her to kindly get away from me, as I had no desire to interact with her. She was confused and started blubbering. I explained that she had disrespected one of our cooks, whom I held in high esteem. Her behavior was, at best, prejudiced, and she was emotionally volatile and manipulative. I made it clear this was her final opportunity to never touch or speak to me again, or she would face serious consequences. I saw her around for a few years after that, and aside from a passive smile, she thankfully never spoke to me again. Looking back on it now, especially being in my late 20s and working with younger folks, I just find it funny. I can't imagine threatening something as serious as self-harm to make someone cancel their Halloween plans. What even was that? Story 3. This was a long time ago, pre-internet in fact. I 17M was working a dishwashing job in the 80s. A newish dishwasher challenged me to a fight. I didn't want to fight. I really liked my job. The pay was $3.40 an hour. I was also fed a big meal at work. This was a ballroom kind of place that did weddings, dinners, and Sunday brunch. And I know it sounds oxymoronic, but dare I say high-end buffet. I loved it. Food at home was locked up in a closet, and I never got enough to eat, so work was heaven. Back in the day, pre-internet, there were lots of fights if you were a male. In my experience, you could get in a fight even if you were avoiding conflict. It just happened a bunch, or I was just lucky. Maybe it was because I was dressed out of fashion and my stepmother would take all my money and get me those plastic blue jeans called Toughskins. They would melt if you lit them on fire. Don't ask how I know. You would wear out your knee before you wore a hole in them. I had the dorkiest glasses too. I was branded an outcast. Get off the bus, and 15 people get off at your stop. A circle forms and you have to fight someone. I lost all my fights. It sucked. I cried. Just a part of life. If I had magic powers, I would make bullying go away. But back in the day, no one cared. It was not physical build that cost me the fights. I think it was confidence and my conflict avoidance. At home, I was the older brother, so in all those home fights, I tried to fight at 80% because I didn't want to hurt my kid brother while he would try to clobber me. I had too much empathy. Also, at home, my stepmother had this 110-foot-long cliff that was 10 feet tall in the backyard that had a septic field behind it that no truck could drive on. Thus, I spent my days with a shovel and a wheelbarrow moving dirt even in the rain to turn this cliff into a gentle slope for my stepmother's epic dream flower bed. I had the arms and upper body strength despite not being on a sports team. This comes into the story. I told the new dishwasher I didn't want to fight. He therefore called me names and said I was afraid and so on. I ignored him. This continued for a month. It was the theme of busy Friday nights and also Sunday mornings. He always wanted to talk about how I was afraid to fight him and how I was so weak and so on. He called me those classic 1980s derogatory terms that are now out of vogue. This eventually got old, so one Sunday morning when he challenged me yet again, I said, "Let's fight then." He was surprised I said yes to a fight. We went outside to the parking lot and it had just rained. He asked again if I wanted to fight. I said I really did. I have heard all about how I can't fight and I'm afraid for like a month, so now I want to fight and end it already. He said he was just joking and he didn't really want to fight. I told him he wanted a fight and I was going to give him exactly what he wanted and had waited so long for. Now, I didn't really want to hurt him. As rude as he had been, I saw him as sort of like my little brother. Annoying, sure, but not someone I want to injure. We work together after all, and it is at a place I like to work. And yet I did want to let him know not to try this crap again. He looked truly frightened. I grabbed his squishy body and put him on a wet car hood and dried the car off from the rain. I used him like a chamois or one of those big car wash sponges. These were not nice cars. They were owned by dishwashers and cooks making $3 to $7 an hour. Even so, I don't think I scraped any of them, or if I did, you couldn't tell. I buffed each car with this dishwasher one after another. He was wiggly, but the friction was low, so honestly, it wasn't all that much of a workout. He yelped a bit and seemed genuinely afraid. In the end, he was absolutely soaked. I was too, if only by proximity. He did me the favor of telling everyone about what had happened, and the general consensus was that it was funny, so I didn't face work consequences. After that, I got to wash dishes in peace. Story 4. I was a cashier at a Hot Topic when about 3 days ago, some lady barged in as if she was about to rob the damn place. She was holding her son's hand and practically dragging him across the floor. She slammed her hand on the counter and looked at me furiously. I looked at her concerned. "Me, can I help?" Entitled Mom, my son choked on this gumball. She held up her hand with a chewed-up gumball and urged me to take it, in which I declined. Me, I'm so sorry to hear that. Entitled Mother, ha, you'd better be, he could have died. Me, I don't know how to help. She started doing the thing where she smiles, and then starts looking around as if some fake crowd is booing at me. Other people know what I'm talking about. Entitled Mother, yeah you do, give me a refund. Me, sorry. Entitled Mother, you heard me, I said, give me a refund. I just loved how she put her hand on the table and pointed at me as if I just talked back to my mom. Me, ma'am, this is a Hot Topic. We don't sell food here. In fact, no store here sells gumballs. That's given by the mall itself. Entitled Mother, yeah, I know, and you work for the mall, so therefore you sell the gumballs. Don't pull yourself out of this. I'm not dumb. Oh yes, of course she's not dumb. Me, no, that's not really how it works, and even if it did, you can't refund eaten food. Entitled Mother, I don't care, I want my money. Me, it's a quarter. A few seconds of silence grew between us. The kid was just standing there looking at me with a blank expression, while his mom was practically pulling his arm off. She started smiling with that sassy face. Entitled Mother, oh, okay. At this point, the other people in the store were looking at her, and I was getting kind of embarrassed. She started to look around at the other people, as if again there was some crowd on her side, and after looking at one lady as if she was saying, "Can you believe this?" The other lady just slowly turned to the other cashier, who just so happens to be my girlfriend. Then she looked back at me and said, Entitled Mother, I see what's going on here. You can't fool me. Me? I don't. Entitled mother, you're trying to rob me. I stood there, looking at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Entitled mother, yeah, you are. How she kept on repeating, yeah, over and over as if she had won, was just so awkward. Me, I robbed you for a quarter. Entitled mother, yeah, my husband is the owner of this mall. He can fire you like this. She snapped, both literally and metaphorically. I could tell she was trying to get me scared, but I wasn't because… Guess what? The owner of the mall was a woman, who I had met personally. Me? Oh wow, should I call her? Entitled mother, let me. Me. I'd love to hear her voice again. The mom just looked at me. I had a smug look on my face. You could probably see it through the mask. She just slammed on the table and started screaming at me. How could you smile like this? A little boy could have died. You are robbing me and murdering my son in the same day. How could you smile? What kind of sick? At this point, my boss, who was in the bathroom, came out and heard the commotion. We both turned to look at him. Boss, what's going on here? Before I could even speak, she threw her hands in the air luckily for the son and said, Entitled mother, he's robbing me. My boss just looked at me, with the most confused look on his face. I was just shaking my head. I was just done. Boss, what? The mom just went on and on explaining the whole story to him. Apparently her son choked on it in the car. He then went on explaining how she can't refund food, and I stepped in to say that she absolutely could because her husband was the mall owner. Boss, do you even know the store owner? She was red. She looked around at the other people at the store, and my girlfriend, before once again ripping her son's hand off, and stormed out of the store without saying anything. Everyone in the store just took turns looking at each other, before some teenage boy broke the silence by saying, "Rage quit." Everyone started laughing, and we went back to work. I remember my girlfriend came over the next day, and wanted to know the full story behind it, as she hadn't heard the entire thing. And people say working as a cashier isn't fun. Yeah, right. Story 5. Anyways, my birthday just passed. Yay! But there's always this thing every year where I think a lot about all of my past birthdays. I get so upset every time and stress about my birthday. I didn't even realize how bad it was until I was older. So I'd like to share each birthday that I remember, featuring my apparently entitled and narcissistic parents. 16th birthday. We had just moved back to the States after living in another country for 6 years. I had no friends, and we were 8+ hours away from any family. I was so surprised that my maternal grandma came to see me a few weeks before, giving me a lovely silver bookmark with a little ice skate on it since I love ice skating. I still keep it in its box so it'll never get damaged or lost. The week of my birthday I baked myself red velvet cupcakes, and I found out my paternal grandparents would be visiting. I wasn't too pleased since my sister and I never cared for them. My dad comes from money, and my grandparents were always so snobbish and controlling. My mom always tries to impress them, and she'd make my sister and I dress nicer and act completely different. The grandparents rarely noticed us or spoke to us, only wanting to hear how school was. So my grandparents show up, and it turns out they're not visiting for my birthday. They're just staying for the night on my birthday because they were on their way to Atlantic City to gamble. My grandfather ate most of my cupcakes, and they hardly looked at me. I had to be highly well behaved my entire birthday, and they didn't even give me a gift. My sister moved out years ago, and at this time didn't speak to me, so I had no one to talk to about this. It all sucked, but I was happy I could at least choose where we'd eat. Wrong. I wanted to go to Waffle House for my birthday, since I hadn't had it in years, and it's my favorite place to eat. It's all I was asking for on my birthday. However, my mom said no. She said we could just go tomorrow, after my grandparents left, because they didn't like Waffle House. Instead, she insisted we go to a nice restaurant, and I hated the food. I was upset the entire time. When I bring it up, she insists I loved the restaurant and picked it myself. She just says she's doing her best. 18th birthday. We were trapped in the middle of Hurricane Florence. To this day, tropical storms terrify me after what I witnessed. And we lived in Japan for 6 years, where severe tropical storms were a monthly occurrence. But Florence was different. The only places open were Waffle House and Golden Corral, as they were the only places that had power. It was very limited, however, as WH could only make grilled cheeses and was packed full of people with limited supplies. GC was full too, and we were in a line to get in for 2 hours. The entire time my parents complained about having to wait so long and wished I would have just preferred to stay at the barracks. We had to be moved to since they had power as well. They said we'd celebrate my birthday later. We had been in the process of moving during the hurricane, so we were finally able to move to another state a couple days later, since the waters finally went down enough that we could exit the state. However, instead of properly celebrating my birthday, my parents ditched me with my sister for a month to go look for houses, and I spent most of my time completely alone since my sister and Bill were military and worked a lot. My sister brought me home a little store-bought cake at one point, so that was nice. But even after we got our new house, my parents never let me celebrate properly. 20th birthday. I desperately wanted to spend my birthday with my mom and go to WH or even Sisai's, and I'd wanted to go to the Lego store since I had been saving up to get a specific set that was sold out online, but available in select stores. My mom complained that the store was 40 minutes away, so we wouldn't go. Whatever, fine. But then she said she wouldn't spend my birthday with me. Why? Because she had made plans, on my birthday, to spend the day with her friend who got a day off from work. I begged her to cancel to spend time with me, since I had no one else but my parents. But she put her foot down and said she would hang out with her friend because her friend rarely got days off, and she wanted to see her. They go to wine festivals constantly. I didn't want to be alone on my birthday, since my dad was working, so I asked to tag along with them. They allowed me to, and I spent the entire time quiet in the car because no one wanted me to speak and going to do all these errands her friend wanted to do, including going into a party city for an hour. I wasn't allowed to get anything at any of the places we went to. After it was all done, my mom went to take a nap, and that was the end of my birthday. 21st birthday. My sister wanted my mom with her to help her with her kids. My mom was supposed to come back the day before but stayed instead, because she also wanted to spend another few days with my sister. My dad took me out for my birthday, but complained the whole time. We went out to eat, and I sobbed in front of the server because my dad made jokes calling me fat, and that maybe I'll lose more weight if I were anorexic. I was an avid ice skater, practiced for 2 hours or more 5 times a week for a year, and I was 5'5" and 135 pounds. He got mad at me for crying and refusing to eat because the thought of eating made me sick. My mom didn't even call me for my birthday. 22nd birthday. I planned it to a T. I'd go out with a work friend in the afternoon to get a Gundam model from a hobby shop I used to play D&D at before we moved to another town 40 minutes away. Stop by my favorite international market, take my friend home, and then go home myself. Then me, my parents, and my sister and her family would go to a restaurant I really liked. Afterwards, me and my parents would go to the bar I work at for karaoke. I'd baked cupcakes for my coworkers and was so excited. And the next day my sister arranged for us to go to a fantasy fair. However, what happened was I hung out with my friend, got home, asked my mom when she wanted to head to the restaurant, and she said we wouldn't go. She said my sister and Bill were on a diet, and they didn't like that place much anyways. I was upset, but it was already a rough day to begin with. My maternal grandmother had passed away earlier that year from COVID, while she was visiting us, and I hadn't been doing well from it for months. I loved her so much, and she had always been so supportive of me being LGBT+, since she was bi and understood how rough it could be. She was the only relative I ever spoke to since my paternal grandparents didn't care about me. She never forgot my birthday. I still have a voicemail from her saved from the year before of her wishing me happy birthday, the last thing I have of her voice. I was a mess. It was so minor, but I was just so upset already. But at least we'd do karaoke. No. What happened was my dad came home from work completely wasted because he went drinking with his friends after work, despite knowing about the plans, then didn't even look at me and went and passed out on the floor. That was all I saw of him for my birthday. I asked my mom when we'd leave for karaoke, and she got awkward and said that she wouldn't be going, that my sister wanted to go to Walmart with her. They love late night shopping for a couple hours. I started sobbing immediately, saying that it was my birthday and I really wanted to have my mom at least and go out with her. My mom said that my sister doesn't see us often and really wanted to hang out with her. My sister was mad at me for asking our mom not to go. She said I shouldn't be upset, that she wanted time with our mom, that she got me tickets to the fantasy fair the next day, so she should get to go out with our mom. I went to my room sobbing. Eventually my mom came to my room saying she was going to Walmart, but I could go to karaoke and she'd see me there when they were done. By the time they finished up, there was maybe an hour of karaoke left, and my sister was angry with me for the rest of the night. The next day we went to the fair. My dad barely spoke and was on his phone constantly. We left early because he was getting bored and irritable and just ditched us to sit in the car. So, yeah, there's the birthdays I remember. Others feel impossible to recall. Maybe I'm dramatic or spoiled, but it's always so upsetting. My birthday I just had was fine. Went to an art exhibit and got to eat where I wanted. Then my parents left to go to their sports league for the rest of the day. I'd ask if they'd call out from it for my birthday since they do it for every concert and other event they want to do. But they said no and insisted they've never done that. Story 6. I call my stepdaughter's entitled boyfriend Wreck-It Ralph, no relation to the trademark cartoon, just coincidental naming. He has a tendency to break/ruin/tear up everything he touches. My stepdaughter, who is actually a sweet and endearing young woman whom I love dearly, has, like many young women with self-esteem issues, allowed herself to be led astray by WIR. In the year they've been together, she's lost everything, but at 23 she is old enough to learn her lessons without us parents coming to her rescue until she gets rid of WIR and back on track. When they first got together, they lived with her dad and myself for a few months. It very quickly became apparent WIR had a chip on his shoulder when it came to me. He would carry tales to my husband, causing us to argue. Despite my husband telling WIR many times that was my house and everything in it was mine, WIR would keep asking my husband, not me, if he could have this or that, and that's if he asked. He kept getting more and more animals despite our telling him no more. Neither were taking care of the ones they had. They weren't buying dog or cat food or cat litter, my husband and I were. They weren't picking up the messes, and they weren't training them, allowing them to tear up our belongings. Mary Jane is legal in our state, and there is a dispensary in our town, and the only work these two would do is door delivery, her job, with a daily payout just to get enough money for WIR to make a purchase at the dispensary every day along with eating at fast food restaurant. WIR's chip on his shoulder when it came to me was such that they brought my husband a soda one night, walking in the back door right past me, calling out loudly, "We got you your favorite soft drink," to my husband in the living room with zero inclusion to me. Another example is my stepdaughter asking if she could use my debit card to go get the four of us drinks at a local convenience store one hot day. My husband and I were unloading stuff from the truck and trailer in the backyard, which was no problem. However, when checking my account, they spent $20 on food for WIR without asking. The end came when I told them they had to replace the bedroom door their dog chewed the bottom out of, and refused to allow the pit bull mix they wanted to rescue, even though it had a bite history, to enter my home. They moved to my stepdaughter's mother's home at that point. During their time there, my stepdaughter kept getting tickets in her car, which is only registered to my husband. They weren't paying their insurance, which I had bought my stepdaughter her own policy and paid the startup out of my money when they lived with us, and didn't pay the plate renewal. Now her license is suspended, and it cost my husband and I $600 to get the plates again in his name, only unsuspended. Plus, they had damaged the car and it needed repairs. So he took it from them. Before her license was suspended, but after the police took the plates from her car, my husband let her use his truck, which was on my insurance policy. WIR drove it, and he has no license, and blew the motor in it. It is now sitting and can't be used. I told my husband I would put the car on my insurance for him, but only if he drove it. If he returned it to them, I was canceling the insurance, which I've stood by. Nevertheless, WIR called daily demanding my husband return the car to them. Once it was legal and fixed after 3 weeks, my husband finally said, "Look, you dumbass, I don't know what it is that you think you're trying to accomplish here, but you're not demanding anything from me and you're not getting the car back. I may have originally bought it for her before she got with you, but it is my car in my name, and I'm keeping it in lieu of the truck you ruined. Don't call me again about the car. Got it?" We had been hearing of ongoing disputes between my husband's ex and WIR. Things got so bad there that WIR told my husband's ex-wife to pack her shit and get the F out of her own home. Another time he told her to shut the F up and remember who she's talking to. So we all decided it was time to let our daughter hit rock bottom, since she wasn't seeing how WIR had taken her from being a sweet, lovable, well-liked, and responsible girl in a college nursing program to this person with a criminal history and no prospects at the moment. My husband's ex-wife moved in with her boyfriend, turning the power off at the home she had been renting, and told her former landlord, whom she was actually long-time friends with, she wouldn't allow it to affect their friendship if he evicted them for squatting, since neither were on her lease to begin with. When my stepdaughter called wanting to come back, my husband told her she could, but WIR could not. Now they are staying at a homeless shelter in the town where WIR's mom lives, and WIR's mom won't let them live with her either. We hate to see her go through this, but this entitled WIR she won't let go of has really brought her down, and she can do so much better. This guy actually told us once he couldn't work at a factory that he interviewed at because it was climate controlled and his heart condition won't allow that. Then argued with me and my husband that climate controlled meant controlled by the climate, so it was hot in summer and cold in winter. We haven't seen him hold a job or do anything useful and productive since they've been together. Just demand from and use the people who love the girl he's become a Klingon to.